Well, welcome back to another episode of the Always About People show. I'm so glad to be joining live again, and thank you for those of you who are joining with us from whatever platform you're watching, whether it be YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're glad that you're here today, and we just want to continue to encourage you to engage with us. It's one thing to just be doing a live show where you feel like you're just talking at people, like it's a monologue, but we really want this to be more than just myself talking or myself and a guest, but we'd love to engage with you. So if you have any questions or comments, we'd ask that you send those in. Even if you're watching this after the fact, please send us some comments, send us some questions. We will promise to engage with you. Even the guests that are with me, we promise to engage with you on these really important topics having to deal with people. As we've said in the past, this show, the whole point of this show is that we would address real issues that people are dealing with in the workplace, in their lives every day. And we hope to leave you with really practical insights by the end of the show, throughout the show. We hope that you'll take notes because we hope that these practical insights will impact you and will ultimately help you to thrive. And so today I am really excited about our topic. I believe it is so important. People need purpose. People need purpose. And I've got an incredible guest joining me today. He's become a new friend, a very new friend. Actually, if I'm honest, we had our first conversation yesterday. But Kamal has an incredible heart. He's got an incredible background, and he is passionate about purpose. He's got a background. He's well educated. He's been a U.S. diplomat. He has written a book. He's an author. He's a speaker. He's a communicator. And now he's got his own consulting firm. He'll tell you a little bit more about his background. But his current consulting firm is called GBM Global Solutions. He'll tell you a little bit more about what that means and where it comes from and how he got to this point. But we want to tackle this idea of people needing purpose. Because the truth is that in the workplace today, we've got people with a more mental health related issues than ever before. Stress is at an all-time high. People are worried about the market. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about the recession. There's anxiety that's just crippling people. There's sadness. There's stagnation. And all of these things are adding to lower motivation in the workplace. And we want to create a conversation where we help you with some practical ideas on how you can connect to purpose and ultimately leading you to a place of peace. And Kamal is going to help us with that today. I am done talking by myself. Would you help me welcome my guest, Kamal Latham? Kamal, it is so good to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining me.
Chris, it's a delight to be here. Thank you for having me.
I do want to say one thing. As I was watching kind of that title slide, you have an incredible smile. And I think that most people will agree, gosh, his smile just brings about peace. But Kamal, I think maybe a place to start the conversation would be for you to just share a little bit about your background. I mean, obviously people can go and they can look at LinkedIn and they can see all the things that you've done, but they never get to hear the backstory. I'd love for you to just take a few moments to share a little bit about your background and really what God's done with your life over the years.
Sure. Well, thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to have a new friend in you, even though our friendship is less than 24 hours.
It's good. We can be honest with people. It's good.
Sometimes you can make fast friends. It's a pleasure to be with you and with everyone who is listening to this program. I'm originally from New York City, born and raised in Queens, went to public schools there. Then I went away to college at Temple University in Philadelphia, came back, worked on Wall Street for a couple of years. Then I went to grad school up at Harvard to study public policy, then became a U.S. diplomat and was overseas for about a decade as a diplomat and then an entrepreneur. Family and I, we moved back to the U.S. We moved to Florida, spent a number of years there, working in the nonprofit realm and also as an entrepreneur. Then we went down to the Caribbean. We're in the U.S. Virgin Islands for a couple of years for an assignment, and then we came back to Florida. And so now here I am, had an opportunity, Chris, to really get an understanding about purpose and having a run-in with purpose. One of the things that I had realized when I was a diplomat, I had the opportunity to help negotiate a multi-billion-dollar trade deal between the United States and China. Got to learn Chinese, was over in Beijing, China, had great annual reviews. I had a good career trajectory. Things were good. I was successful, at least on the world's standard. However, I was not fulfilled. And there is a difference between being successful and fulfilled. And the difference was that when you are focused on what you've been called to be, which is that responsibility, that job, that assignment, that role for a particular season. I was called to be a diplomat for a season of my life. You could be so focused on what you've been called to be that you're not focused on what you've been called to do. And what you've been called to do is that horizontal that cuts across every season of your life. And what you've been called to do is that one word that best describes you. It's the way that you impact people, because just as you know, it is all about people. So I had a conversation with God one day, and he said, "What's the one word to best describe you?" And I said, "I don't know. What is the one word?" He said, "I called you to inspire." Inspire. That is what I have called you to do. So regardless of what you've been called to be, whether it's a diplomat or it's an entrepreneur or it's working in some other role, what you're supposed to be doing in each of those roles is to inspire people to have hope for a better tomorrow. So I realized purpose was far more than what I was called to be for a season. Purpose was what I was called to do for a lifetime.
Ooh, well, shoot, maybe we should just end it right there, Kamal. I mean, you just inspired me. Let me just rewind and we'll unpack this for everybody. I was listening to your story and I was thinking, Kamal, with the exception of returning to Harvard for graduate school, he has continued to move south. So you go from New York to Philly, down to Gainesville or to Florida, then to the Caribbean, but then you moved back north. I was hoping maybe you'd figure out how to get further south. But I guess China was in there too, which isn't exactly south. But an incredible story, incredible experiences along the way. I'd like to know in your career, you said that you're hitting your KPIs, you're having all these great reviews, you're being successful. What did you feel like in those moments? What made you come to the conclusion that you were still missing something?
That's an excellent question. Here's one thing that I've realized. Success could also mean that you could be sad. You could feel stale. You could be stagnant and still be successful. Being successful does not exempt you from being depressed, from being anxious, from being down. You could be very successful and have a mastery of negative emotions. And so where I got to the point is that I am tired of just trying to be the master of negative emotions, trying to put that mask on, going to the job, trying to put that mask on, coming home to see my wife and children, putting that mask on when I'm dealing with people, because you could try to put up a facade to try to keep perpetuating the image of success, whether you actually are successful or not. But you can put on that facade to try to mask that you're sad, that you're stagnant, and that you feel stale. Because you have to realize when you are operating in your purpose, that's when you can get the fulfillment. The fulfillment will speak to your soul. The success can speak to your mind, maybe even your body, but the fulfillment will speak to your soul. And if your soul is not happy, if your soul is not refreshed, if your soul is not progressing, then you're not going to be fulfilled, regardless of what success you may have and however you measure that. Yeah. If you're not fulfilled, it will undermine, ultimately, in the long term, the success.
Well, Kamal, I think that this is such an appropriate conversation for the time that we're in right now. obviously over the last couple of years, some call it the Great Resignation. We've seen people bouncing from one job to another job. I would say that they're believing that it's greener on the other side. They may not even be fully aware of what the soul is missing, but they're jumping to another success. They're jumping to another company to meet some sort of hole in their life, a vacuum in their work life. And I guess you would say, really, it's that they haven't fully identified their purpose, or they haven't found a workplace that's aligning with their purpose. And so we've seen this jumping from one place to another. Now we're seeing data that people who did jump still aren't fulfilled. Some are considering even going back. I'd love for you to maybe just help our guest who may be in that place. What would you tell them right now? Would you tell them to just stop jumping? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to look in the mirror and ask yourself the question, what is the one word that best describes me? And then a second question, what do people say about me after interfacing with me on my best day? And then ask yourself a third question, how do people feel after interacting with my best work? The true answer to each of those three questions. What's the one word that best describes me? What do people say after interacting me on my best day? And how do people feel after interfacing with my best work? The true answer to each of those three questions gives you three answers, which is a GPS coordinate of high likelihood of what you have been purposed to do. When you know what you've been purposed to do, you should then have your career, have your business flow from that, because you want to be in a position where your purpose can have full play. Because when you know what your purpose is, what you've been called to do, then you're going into a job, you're going into your business, you're going into your team, whatever it is that you call the entity that you got to connect with. You're going to go into it looking to be the thermostat and not the thermometer. The thermometer does not have control. The thermometer reads the temperature in the room and is the average of what's happening in the room. The thermostat has some level of control. The thermostat influences its surroundings. You want to be the thermostat in your life. Regain that level of control that you have lost because you're just pursuing happiness, thinking that it's just success. You need to pursue happiness, knowing that it's in your purpose, not in the job description per se, but in the purpose. Because when you know what that purpose is, are you called to inspire? Are you called to comfort? Are you called to challenge? Are you called to build? Are you called to sow? Are you called to deliver? When you know what that one word that best describes you, then you want to find a position that will enable your gift and your talent to have full play.
I love it. Let me just go back. I want to make sure that people didn't miss anything. You said that practically, if you're in this place of either sadness, stale, stagnant, feeling like you're lacking something in your work, you said, first, go look in the mirror. Look in the mirror, spend some time just assessing yourself. It's kind of a self-evaluation, if you will. And then think about the one word. Let's just start there. I want to give people as highly practical of a process as possible. That was a lot of P's, I just realized. But if we help people here, Kamal, your one word, inspire. How did you come up with that? I mean, if we're asking people right now, hey, go think about a word. I know you had two other questions that I've got written down here, but is it a word that people have called me before? Is it a word that I love? Is it a word that I think I am? Because sometimes we can have bias too. What sort of advice or help would you give people who are trying to find this one word?
The advice that I would provide is ask your family members, ask
That's
your
good.
friends. That gets into that second question. When you're dealing with me on my best day, what do you say? How do you
Mm.
feel? When I had interacted with some people and I thought about it, there are some people who said that after they had dealt with me, they felt inspired. And that gave me a clue. That gave me an indication of where my gifting is. Because the purpose of your purpose is to leave an impression upon people. We are called to, when we leave this earth, to leave more than a carbon footprint, but to leave a life imprint. Just as
Mhm.
you have coined that phrase, it truly is all about people. Your purpose is the most impactful, the most concentrated way, the most influential way that you will impact somebody. So, what people say after interfacing with you on your best day, what they are saying is, this is how you have impacted me. That's your
Love it.
purpose. When you look
Yeah.
at the great artists, the painters, your Michelangelos, your Rembrandts, what have you, you know that what they were called to be, their position was painter. They were called to be a painter. That calling of what they're called to be for the season of their life ended when their season of life ended. But when you look at their paintings today, which is their
Mhm.
best work, you feel something. You can look at a Michelangelo or a Rembrandt, and you may feel inspired. You may feel comforted, or you may feel built up. You may
Mm.
feel different types of things, but there's going to be a common denominator that most people will walk away with the same type of feeling. That gives you the indication of what they were called to do, their purpose, what it likely was. So, through their good work of painting, they were able to inspire people. That is what it is about. So, whether you
Mhm.
are in financial services, in the insurance industry, the banking industry, the telecommunications industry, home health care, social services, education, it doesn't make a difference what field you're in. It could be law, consulting. When you are interacting with your clients, interacting with your customers, interacting with your colleagues, interacting with the people who are your strategic partners, consistently, when you're operating and you are having your best day, you're on your mark, and people are seeing the greatness of your
Yeah.
gifting flow, they're going to have something that they are feeling of how you're impacting them. Therein lies your purpose. And that is what it's about. Because when you release your purpose, you're going to release your peace.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. Okay, so for people who are watching, maybe this is for you. Maybe it's for someone in your life. Maybe it's for a member of your team. Maybe it's someone that you're leading. First place to start would be to help them understand what that one word is. The way you get to that one word is to think about what people say about you. A couple questions that would guide that is number one, what do people say about me when they interact with me on my best day? And then the second question, how do people feel when interfacing with my best work? And you, whether you're a leader, whether you're a parent, whether you're a spouse, a friend, doesn't matter the role, one way that you can help yourself and those around you get to this place of peace is by identifying this one word of purpose. Um, if I were to hashtag anything from the last few minutes, Kamal, I would say maybe you didn't even know you said this, but you said the purpose of purpose is to impact people. The purpose of purpose is to impact people. And I love that. While we were talking, and you were sharing, Kamal, I started to think about a couple of these cultures that you've also been a part of, because obviously we interact in sort of an American culture, but you've spent time in China, you've also spent time in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I would love to know from you, in a particularly a Chinese culture that's so success driven, at least from my perspective. How does this same idea of identifying purpose, how does that even work across cultures? Can you speak to that?
It works very cleanly across cultures, particularly when you are in Eastern cultures, because they have a high context. They're known as high context cultures. It's
Mm,
more than just what you say, it's how you make people feel. Because before you can really do a lot of big business in a place such as China, there has to be a relationship. Big business is predicated upon a relationship. We were there in China for 8 years and had an opportunity to meet people from different backgrounds in China, powerful government officials, wealthy individuals, and people who were at the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder. And one of the
mm,
most impactful people I'd ever met in my life was a gentleman who dwelt in a cave in China. I was studying Chinese and we were going on a field trip out into a remote part of China. And while we were on the bus, there were these caves, and they had mentioned that, well, back in the 70s, people had lived in caves because of what was going on with a lot of the political dynamics. And so that was a place of refuge. We're like,
mm,
oh, wow, that's amazing. Can you imagine, dwelling in a cave? And then we saw this person who was standing on a rock and he was waving at us. So we said, stop the bus. We got out the
mm,
bus and we saw there was a gentleman, very old gentleman, and he was waving to us and he was dwelling in a cave. And so we went up to get to talk to him. We talked to him in Chinese. He was happy. He was one of the happiest people I met. He dwelt in a cave, no running water, no electricity. He had
mm,
a stick with two buckets at the end. He would go down the mountain and across the road and down to town to get his water and walk it back. Very, very basic living. But this man was wealthier and richer than all of us combined because he was able to tap into a key of life. He had such an impact upon us that after we left his presence, we were either inspired or we were comforted. We were just so excited because we met someone who was
mm,
focused more on life and the value and the beauty of life and that gift of life than material circumstances. It was a very powerful lesson that it's all about people, and just
mm,
knowing that when you can just bring happiness to someone by just smiling and just being friendly and sharing with people whatever you have to share, regardless of what value you may be putting on it. When you're sharing part of yourself or sharing what you have with other people, it's like that old phrase, it's the thought that counts, not what you're actually giving, but it's the thought that matters. So I
mm,
had opportunity to deal with other people in China at different ends of the spectrum. And one of the things that was remarkable is that there's so many people in China that really valued life and the opportunity to just have a positive impact on people's lives, whether they were wealthy or they were in government or they were at different ends of the socioeconomic
mm.
spectrum. Because truly, it's about what impact can I leave on someone so that when they leave my presence, I have added value to them and they can bring that value with them.
Hmm. I love it. And I think that that brings me back to this idea that I believe that this may be what our culture, our society is dealing with the most right now. You come out of a pandemic where anxiety and fears are at an all-time high. We live in a divided, divisive culture right now of binary arguments. And ultimately, it feels like everybody's trying to find a level of peace in the midst of the crazy. And I think your point, you have brought us back and reminded us today, it's about finding that place of purpose, that people need purpose ultimately in order to release the peace. And Kamal, I think what I would just say is it feels to me like there are millions of people looking for peace, and they think that peace can be found in jumping to some new job, jumping to a new organization, finding a new opportunity. And yet, I I'm going to ask you to comment on this, but what you have continued to reinforce today is the idea that no matter what you are actually doing for work, that the role that you are being, It's this one word, this purpose that you are living out on the earth that will impact people. The purpose of purpose is to impact people. Do you want to respond to any of that? Did I get that right? Did I, anything you want to add?
Yes. When you know what your purpose is, then you're not going to try to find your happiness in what you're putting your hands to or who you're connected with per se. Because the same thought process that goes into, oh, I'm not happy here, I'm going to go to this job, jump to that job, is the same thought that goes into, oh, I'm not happy with this person, so I'm going to jump from this person to another person. Oh, I'm not happy there. Jump from this person to another person. It's the same thought process, because when you don't know your purpose, it's very hard, if not impossible, to truly have your own peace. If you don't have peace with yourself, you're not going to find peace in some relationship or in some responsibility or some job. People try to find peace in something external and hoping it will help heal them internally. You find your peace because you know your purpose, you know your role of how you are to impact people, as opposed to trying to look for people to medicate you because you're feeling hurt. And so, oh, they hurt me at this job, or they hurt me in this relationship. I got to find a new job to heal my hurt. I got to find a new relationship to heal my hurt. That doesn't heal anything. You're just bringing your hurt, your pain, your lack of peace from one job to the next, from one person to the next. When are you going to stop that roller coaster? When are you going to get off of that hamster trail? It's when you find your purpose. Because when you find your purpose, you then can take control over yourself, realizing, what's my role? Think about it. If you don't know your purpose, then you're going to be limited in how much you can truly value life. You'll be limited in how you can value your own gifts and your own talents. It'll be hard for you to value yourself. It'll be hard to even give a proper valuation of yourself in the marketplace, because you don't know the role that you're playing. That's one of the big things in companies. You want everyone to know the role that they're playing so that they can all come together. Well, if you don't know your personal role of what you are playing at a particular job in terms of your gift and your talent that you and you alone have so uniquely, if you don't know what that is, if you don't have it defined and know how you can have that impact on people, it's hard to be part of a larger entity that needs people to really take their value and plug it in so that you have larger value. The purpose of business is to create value that can be verified in the marketplace with a price that's put on it. So if you don't know your purpose, it's hard for you to understand your value. So then how can you add value to a business or to another person?
That's awesome. Well, to our guest, whether you're watching this live or you're watching it later, I think we've pretty much summed it up. Find your purpose. People need purpose, because it's through that purpose that really peace is released in your life. And we're seeing culturally right now that people are jumping from one thing to another, one relationship to another, one job to another, simply to try and find this place of peace. And it can be found in purpose. The way to find that, Latham has given us a really, really, I'm sorry, I just said Latham. Kamal Latham has given us, I was like, that didn't sound right, Kamal. But that has given us a really great outline, starting with finding that one word, and then trying to think through, what do people say about me when they interact with me on my best day? And then ultimately, how do people feel when they interface with my best work? And those are just a few really practical ways that we can discover this one word, this place of purpose, but it's through that purpose that we can ultimately find peace. Kamal, I want to say thank you. Thank you for helping us practically. And you've inspired me. You've inspired me, and I know that you've inspired guests. I want to make sure that we give an opportunity for people to know how they can find you, how they can interact with you, how they can interact with GBM Global Solutions. I know that you have a book out there. Why don't you just share a little bit about how people could get in touch with you if they want to know more or want to interact with you from a consulting perspective?
Yes, people can email me directly. It's pretty simple. Kamal@kamallatham.com. Kamal@kamallatham.com. I wrote a book, and the title is Your CEO Potential: Realizing Your Calling, Equipping, and Outcomes in Christ Jesus. It's a faith-based book that really encourages people to find and fulfill their purpose in life. And in that, there are 9 different calling types that have been profiled. And I believe that everyone has a dominant principal calling type. The book is available on Amazon. It also could be ordered, an autographed copy can be ordered through the website, kamallatham.com. Because when you really look at purpose, there's that one word that best describes you. And in the book, we walk through 9 different calling types. One of them is the comforter, and then there is the comforter brings peace. And there's a deliverer, and the deliverer is someone who brings freedom. Then there's the conqueror. The conqueror brings victory. And there's the watchman. The watchman brings warning. There's the inspirer. The inspirer brings hope. There's the challenger. The challenger brings growth. There's a builder. The builder brings security. And then there's a worshiper, or the awe-inspirer, if you will. And they bring holiness. And finally, there is the sower. And the sower brings understanding and revelation. And so 9 different calling types are identified in that book. And it is intended to try to help people understand where they may fall. There could be many more calling types. And this is what you've been called to do, not just what you've been called to be in a vertical column during a season of your life. It's what you've been called to do. And we provide consulting and advisory services for companies, particularly the companies that are looking to try to align things with their employees. One of the things that we look at is there's a lot of stuff that's happening geopolitically. So your employees are coming through the door with pandemic on their mind, with war on their mind, with very heavy social, political issues on their mind. And that is what is showing up at your office. How do you lead? How can you be the best reflective and inclusive leader when you have people coming in with all sorts of things, even remotely, but they're still tuning in? It's about helping people to walk through their purpose, have people understand, have a discovery phase so they can find out what their purpose is. Because when people on a team each know their real role, that's when they know how to add the value. And then your business can generate more value. And then you're able to be more profitable. And you have the opportunity to release peace, not just with your employees and with your clients, but with your shareholders as well.
That's awesome. Well, Kamal, the mission of Always About People, the purpose of why we do what we do is to come alongside organizations and leaders and help them create cultures where people thrive. And part of thriving is to align them with purpose. And I just want to say thank you for what you have provided to our guests today. I know that even people like Pete Torrey, who sent in a comment and just said, amazing session. There are others who have gotten a lot from this practically as well. Thank you for joining me on our 24-hour friendship. And I look forward to many, many, many more conversations about how we can work together, how I can support you in what you're doing and your calling to inspire people. It's an honor to know you better today. And I would just say to all of our guests, Kamal is a person that, man, you may need to bring into your organization, or at least figure out how to get more of the resources that he has made available. And as always, I just want to say thank you for joining us live on the show. We try to put relevant, practical topics out there each week on the Always About People show. And we'll be back with you again next week. And just remember, you can watch us live on really your favorite platform, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. We're going to continue to bring guests and topics that will help you in the workplace to create cultures where people thrive. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.